Hello, welcome to this month's Living with Parkinson's Meetup. I'm Chris Kruger, Program Manager for Educational Content with the Davis Phinney Foundation. And like our panelists, I too live with Parkinson's. I was diagnosed in 2020 when I was 37. I'm really excited to be here with our panelists, and I'm glad that we're getting the band pretty much back together. Still got a couple folks not with us, but we're almost all here today, so that's great. Today we're going to talk about non-motor symptoms, and this is a major issue. And we've gotten a lot of questions about these before the webinar, so we'll try to get to as many of those as we can. But before we dive into the topic, I just want to invite the panelists to introduce themselves. And maybe when you do this, panelists, if you can just let us know what non-motor symptom is affecting you the most these days. And if you have a technique or a trick, tip, whatever you might be doing to manage that, if you have anything, maybe add that too. So maybe we'll start with Doug.
Hi, everyone. I'm Doug Reed from Lafayette, Colorado. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2010 when I was 36. I'd been showing symptoms probably for about 2 to 4 years prior to that. I had DBS in the fall of 2019, and it's been life-changing for me for the better. Happy to be here.
And what about non-motor symptom? What's been going on for you with that these days?
Apathy and depression are probably the two biggest ones. I'm seeing a therapist that I just started seeing about 4 weeks ago, so I'm hoping for some benefit there.
Great. All right, thanks, Doug. And Shri, you're next on my screen, so why don't you give us a little introduction, please?
I'm Shri. I'm from the Bay Area. I was diagnosed in 2015, but I had symptoms, really subtle symptoms, starting in 2013. And my non-motor symptoms are basically apathy, anhedonia, depression, and just mental, cognitive, executive functioning decline, but not at a high level. Just at a slow level, the inability to find words, the inability to maybe the ability to forget things, I should say. And the way I combat that is basically by shaving off my hair, which I just did recently. I mean, that's actually very real. It just makes me feel like I have a whole new outlook on life. It freaks out my family. So many things are covered in that one act.
Yeah, so it like refreshes the whole world in a certain way, right?
Refreshes the whole world.
So Brian, you're next on my screen.
Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, good. I just got into the Los Angeles area. I have a doctor's appointment, so came down here to do that. But I think my non-motor, it's the depression, it's the cognition, it's the apathy, and word forgetting. There was something else I wanted to say, but I can't find it. I'm happy to be here today.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And you're giving us a new view with the landscape behind you and the trees and everything. Yeah. It's nice to have some fresh air in this video. Okay, Kat.
Hi, everybody. Excuse me. I'm Kat Hill. I am currently in Estacada, Oregon. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2015 at the age of 48. And I would say apathy is something that I've been struggling with just probably the last 6 months or so, and pain. Even though some of the pain I think is motor related, I think it's something that we don't talk about enough. And in terms of tips and tricks, I think I'm trying really hard not to judge it in the moment and react to it or panic about it, all of which are challenging, but only seem to make it harder. So yeah, I think that's kind of where I am. So I'm real open to any tricks anybody has out there for those things.
Yeah, thanks, Kat. I understand the impulse to panic myself, so I appreciate you observing that as a thing to work against. Okay, Larry.
Yeah, hi everybody from a very hot and humid Toronto, Canada, which is quite strange for me to be saying that. I have been living with Parkinson's for the past 12 years, and as is typical, I was primarily diagnosed with motor symptoms with Parkinson's. But years before, I was treated for insomnia, anxiety, and depression. And I think those could have been the precursor, in fact, to the motor symptoms, which we all rely on for our diagnosis. So I'm very aware of both the motor and non-motor symptoms. The current one that I'm struggling with at the moment is my blood pressure. When I get out of bed in the morning, I've got to be careful, because if I get up too quickly, I get dizzy, and I'm then worried about stumbling and falling. I also find that after exercise, when I get off the bike, I've got to be careful, because maybe the strenuous exercise is having an effect on that. So I take my time. I look for stability. I sit down, calm my breathing, and that's how I deal with that. The other symptoms that I've dealt with on my journey, which I'm happy to share, but that's where I'm at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Larry. I share that experience with exercise myself as well. So it's important to note that sometimes you got to take it easy after a workout. Kevin.
Hey everyone, Kevin here, dialing from Boulder, Colorado today. I've been living with Parkinson's for about 15 years. I will tell you, when I testified at the FDA in 2015, and back then in my testimony, I was telling them that motor symptoms I can live with. It's the non-motor symptoms that are the bane of my existence, and they continue to be. If I had to pick a non-motor symptom, that's sort of the flavor of the week. This week's has been probably speech tied to executive function. It's not just the words audibly coming out, it's the ability to keep cadence and keep pace with a very active discussion. And we've talked about this in previous podcasts, but when you can't talk, you sort of withdraw. And there's a piece of that that's very much a part of this ability to speak.
Yeah.
With
All right,
that,
thanks.
I'll stop speaking.
Understood. Thanks, Kevin. Amber.
Hi, I'm Amber from El Paso, Texas. I was diagnosed with Parkinson's in 2018 when I was 35, and then I had DBS in 2021. I think, like everybody, I think apathy is my biggest nightmare right now. Apathy and anxiety. And I'm with Kat. I would love tips on how to combat this, because that is my biggest struggle right now.
Sure. All right, thanks, Amber. And Robin.
Hey, everybody. Robin Morades from Charlotte, North Carolina. I got diagnosed in 2015, but I had been experiencing symptoms since probably 2002 or 2003. And I am like Kevin. The non-motor symptoms are just kicking my ass. And like a host of them, it's hard to pick out which one is the flavor of the week right now. And sometimes I forget. I had DBS in 2020, and so I don't take medication. But sometimes I forget I can take medication to combat some of these non-motor symptoms, and I forget that sometimes. But I think right now my hardest is the diaphragmatic control with my breathing. It affects me in my speech. It affects me in my exercise. And I don't have any real strategies other than I have to like really pay attention to using my diaphragm, which is really, really annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for that, Robin. Okay, so Robin mentioned DBS, and I think the last person on this introduction list is Kristi, who has maybe an update to share with us about that part of living with Parkinson's. So, Kristi, you're up.
Hi, everybody. My name is Kristi Monica. I was diagnosed in 2020 formally. I really have had more symptoms back to 2013, I think. So I just had DBS. May 14th was stage 1. So I had my leads implanted in stage 1 on the 14th of May. Stage 2 was the 23rd of May, and that was my battery. The battery hurt the most for me. I don't know how everybody else feels about that. I would like to know, how about, what do we think, females compared to males? How much did that hurt, the battery?
My battery is about to give out in about a year, and that is the part I'm most terrified about, is having to have the battery pack replaced.
Does it hurt,
That was
right?
definitely the most painful part.
Same. How about you, Robin?
Mine was a non-event. It didn't hurt
Really?
at all. Yep, it
That's
didn't hurt
crazy.
at all.
Mine didn't hurt at all, but I was black and blue bruised from my nipple to my earlobe when the generator was implanted.
Yeah, it looked like someone punched me in the boob for like a week. Straight, it hurt so bad.
I
I
looked
think
like I had a tie-dye shirt on. I was so multicolored.
nobody tells females that you should put on a bra when you get home as soon as possible. And I wish that someone told me that. My programming, I got turned on June 12th, and it's not a miracle, but I think that I'm hopeful it's going to be a positive thing in the future. I'm going to post a link right in the chat to my Caring Bridge site. Thank you, Robin, for telling me about Caring Bridge. So my site, it's open to everybody because, I just want people to learn and to see every part of it. So there's my site. It's in the chat that tells you everything that's going on. So I try to update it every few days. And I'm hopeful in the end that's
Yeah,
gonna be
so
good.
that's a great way to follow along with Kristi's updates, and I can attest that it's been an interesting thing to read. So do check that out. And we'll keep checking in with Kristi, and it's not surprising that it's not, the first programming is not, a quote unquote miracle. That's common. So I'm hopeful that it's just going to get better each time you go for a programming appointment. And when is the next one?
Wednesday.
All right. So hopefully we'll get an update soon.
After talking with Doug, and I'm really hopeful about the future. That I know it's gonna take a little bit. It's gonna take time. Robin, I know your experience wasn't great. It takes time. So I'm very hopeful it's gonna be awesome in the future. And so that's where I am right now.
Great. Well,
Yeah, I saw my programmer about once every 2 weeks for the first 2 months or so after I had my DBS implanted. And now I see my programmer once every 6 months, and they really haven't tweaked my system much at all in the past 2 years.
That's my experience too, Doug.
Oh, good. See, I'm very hopeful for you guys.
And I've been able to get off
Yeah.
all carbidopa, levodopa. I just take 2 silagilene a day.
That would be awesome. I'm so grateful that I'm friends with everybody that I'm in good company with us. And I'm very hopeful for the future.
Good.
Oh, and my non-motor symptom, sweating, and I think sweating is my number one thing.
too much or
And
too little?
Too much, and pain. So unfortunately, central pain, DBS does nothing to get rid of that. And I thought that in my restless legs, my restless legs were taken care of and controlled with gabapentin. Surprise, they're not. They really hurt when I go to bed. So if I take a half of carbidopa, levodopa, it takes it away.
Let's transition into talking in earnest about non-motor symptoms. For many people, a very difficult part of living with Parkinson's, and I think that's indicated in a lot of the studies on this subject. And most studies find that very close to 100% of people with Parkinson's experience some significant non-motor symptom. And in fact, I recently read a study that was saying that 20% of people, it's their prominent symptoms at time of diagnosis are actually non-motor symptoms. Let's just start and talk about apathy, since so many of the panelists expressed that was an issue for them. And I'll say something to begin with on that. I recently received a message from someone with Parkinson's who said, that one thing that works for him is putting things on a calendar and keeping things so that it's not, it's not, what am I going to do? I don't want to do anything. It's, this is the thing that's today. And I wonder if anybody has any experience with scheduling to work around some of the issues that might occur with apathy. I don't know that it would work for everybody, but it seems to work for some. Yeah, Kat.
Yeah, I'll dive into that. I have been a lifelong planner. You know, I lived by my calendar when I was working, and I have found that a couple of things have happened since my diagnosis, and especially since the apathy. I think honoring that I need to dial back the amount of things that I'm trying to do so that I'm not frustrated with the cognitive impairment stuff and the juggling. But I think it's really important to have things on the calendar, because I think it forces us at some level to be accountable to ourselves and perhaps to others. Maybe meeting up in an exercise class, or scheduling a phone call with somebody, or participating in a group, or going to a support group. I think those things are important, because I think with apathy, it gets very easy to let those symptoms take over and make us smaller. And it's easy to blow off the appointments. It's easy to not care a lot about it. So I'm allowing myself to participate in things, even though I don't feel a lot of excitement maybe about it, or a lot of passion about it. But I do it because I know it's best for me and to keep me moving forward. And I have faith that, like with so many things with this disease, that things will ebb and flow. And I'm hoping to get back to a point of a different feeling about things. So I don't know if that helps. I also can get overwhelmed by a calendar. So I find it helpful to print it out and actually look at it too, so that I'm not trying to check on my little tiny screen. I'd be curious to hear what other people do. Sri, you had ideas too?
A couple of things. Yes. In terms of scheduling things around apathy, I don't really care because I have apathy. So just wanted to throw that out there. So, but I just wanted to make a quick note for anyone who might be confused with the way I was confused in moments earlier. I should remember this, but I sometimes forget. Non-motor symptoms motor symptoms does not mean physical symptoms. So with non-motor symptoms, there's vision issues, there's breathing issues, there's swallowing issues. There's a lot of those issues. So in my list, I forgot to list all those other things. So just know that I've got every physical non-motor issue possible, other than urinary incontinence, but that's coming my way, I'm sure, for Christmas. Waiting for that to happen. But I think what I end up doing is I schedule things early in the morning if I can. I don't like to get up early in the morning. I've never been a morning person. But if I have something that I have to be at, something that I know that I cannot get out of, and I try and get out of many things. Like I was even trying to get out of this webinar because I'm like, I just don't care. I just don't care. And I had to force myself to make sure that I maintain the commitment. And so if I schedule things that I know that people are counting me on for that I can't get out of, that in the morning, that definitely helps get my day moving. So you just I have to be sure that it's something I can't weasel out of, because I can weasel out of almost anything. So it has to be something where I know someone's going to be disappointed in me, someone's going to be upset with me, that someone won't be as understanding. And unfortunately, I have too many people around me that are understanding. So finding those people is really hard, but that's what I try and do.
I try to do calendar too, except for the exercising before the DBS. Every time I try to exercise, I'd have that on my calendar, and I'd get discouraged because I'd go off every time I go to put on my gym clothes. So I'd go to the gym. The last time I went to my gym, I got there and I was off, and I stayed off, and I took medication, and I didn't go back on. And then I went back on, and the next class started, and he's like, "Oh, do you want to stay for the next one?" I was like, "Oh no, I better hurry home." Because good thing I did, because I went off again when I got home. So then it gets really disappointing when you schedule. your exercise on your calendar, and then before my DBS and I kept going off. So it was discouraging to me. So only big events I schedule on my calendar. Meetings and such. And
Yeah, Kevin.
It helps for me to set up events. You know, if I think that I'm training for something, you know, like a bike ride or ski season, or just breaking down the year into 2 and 3 month increments where I have something to look forward to and train to. To me, that helps me build the cycle. So I don't know if others do that.
Kevin, I do that. I'm very goal oriented. And so I plan a vacation. So then I have something to strive for with training and things like that, is that I get this sort of pot at the end of the rainbow. I get to go on vacation and do something fun. So that's more what I do, is goal oriented type of training.
Yeah, I'm the same way. And patting yourself on the back each day that you work towards it is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's hugely important, Kev. Sorry to jump in here. And I think on the days that you're not able to do it, so for me, I'm so quick to judge myself, or that little voice in my head saying, oh, you didn't do it, you know, shame on you, you need to do this tomorrow. I'm trying really, really hard to give myself some grace in that. Like, nobody died because I didn't get to the pile of laundry today. The pile of laundry will be there tomorrow, or I could make up a phone call, or, you know, whatever. I'm trying to learn that life doesn't end just because you don't check off that item on your list. Because like you, Robin, I'm so driven and so goal oriented. So
My
for those of
partner
you,
and I,
yeah.
partner and I have a code word for it. We say, I didn't do something and I am unrepentant. That's our joke with each other. I am unrepentant, and we sort of go, good for you.
Yeah.
So we make light of it.
You know, we have to treat our lives like we're professional athletes, getting our body trained for a lifetime of events. And one of the conversations I had with a pro tennis player that I sat next to on a plane was, well, what do you do on your days off? And he said, you know, even days off, he said to me, are active days of recovery. And so recovery is what we do, right? You had to allow yourself to have a day to just sort of get fresh again.
Amber, I think you had just raised your hand too.
Yeah, I was really big on like setting little goals and something to look forward to, but it's become a lot harder when I don't care. So that was something that really helped me get through the day, is knowing that there was a goal that I was going to reach or something exciting to look forward to. But now that I'm struggling with apathy, I really don't care about getting to that goal. So it's making it a lot more difficult. But I think that the activities that I do, like work, I have to go to work. I have to pay the bills or stuff for my kids. They don't give me a choice. They will pester me until I'm in the car doing whatever they want. So I think stuff like that keeps me going. But it's become a lot more difficult with stuff that like extra stuff around the house or going extra places that I don't mandatorily have to go to. Those are the things that I'm missing out on.
Yeah. So when you just mentioned, the things you sort of have to do, namely related to your family, you know, I know that also means a lot to you. So in a way, it's something you have to do, but it's also something that is deeply important to you. And this reminded me of something that I wanted to, that someone else had mentioned to me the other day, that one trick that they use to get around their experience of apathy is to keep track of a list of places that they feel very soothed by being in, whether it's at a park or whether it's just in their, maybe it's in the bath. I mean, whatever it is, whatever place. So it's not a thing you do. It's a place where you feel soothed or comforted or just better being in. And, you know, I think that resonates with me too. You know, if I get into a different environment, I recognize that it's not necessarily easy to get out of the house if you feel apathetic, but if it's not about doing something so much as it is about being somewhere, sometimes that can be helpful to some.
And the thing is once I do it and once I get out of the house or go wherever my kids or my family or whoever needs me, I feel great. It's just the matter of getting me from stuck in my rut to like where I need to be. And then I feel amazing. And I'm like, why didn't I do this? Why was it so difficult for me to motivate myself? When I'm here and I'm like enjoying myself, I'm having a good time, I feel a lot better, I'm around people that I love. It's just a matter of getting myself motivated to just suck it up and do it.
Amber, it reminds me of the slogan or the saying, bring the body, the mind will follow. Mm-hmm. Sometimes if you can just show up, then it ends up paying off and being worth it.
I feel like every time it makes it worth it. It's just, if I could make myself do so many more things that way, it would be amazing.
Yeah, and I think remembering it in the moment, I think that's a lot what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to honor that it's happening, but not stay stuck in, oh, here I am again, not caring. I'm not caring. So Chris, I really liked that input piece, even just changing the environment, going outside, even breathing fresh air. Although I know some places it's very hot and humid, sorry. Larry, but even that, you know, go outside, be hot for a minute, and then be so grateful that you can come inside where it's cooler. I don't know. It sounds very simple, but I think that subtle shift sometimes, for me at least, can be enough to kind of break the cycle. Or say, you know what, today I'm gonna sit down with my favorite magazine. I save a small pile of magazines and I read them a zillion times, or look at Pinterest, or anything to get my head off of myself, sort of. Yeah. I don't know if that helps. I don't want people to feel lost or like super depressed hearing this conversation, because I will say that apathy, for all that it is, it's also not the same really as depression. I don't walk around with my head down, feeling really sad. I just don't have a lot of passion or strong feelings about anything. And it's just unusual. And maybe if we don't judge it so much, I don't know, I keep coming back to that, but.
I think that's a very important point, is the distinction between apathy and depression. I may not have apathy, but I don't return my friends' phone calls. But I think we've got to set the expectation in ourselves and also of others. You know, when my friend says, hey, you know, I phoned you 3 times, why didn't you get back to me? In a quiet moment, I explain that I didn't really want to talk to you, nothing personal. I was just maybe having an off day. So I think what I've done is I set expectation of others in training them not to expect an immediate phone call back. So that gives me time, and it at least keeps me on side as far as, you know, the support system is concerned as well.
I used to be more into media and entertainment. So like 3 years ago, I was all about J-Lo and Ben Affleck. Now I read the news and I see what's going on with the relationship, and I'm just like, who cares? Not interested. So, but a tip, it could be one good tip is plunging your face in a bowl of cold water So it sounds really weird, but ice cold water or taking a cold shower or just not maybe just splashing cold water on your face, it wakes the body up. And I don't know if there's a scientific study about that, but it's been told in the annals of Parkinson's people who talk to each other that actually helps get some dopamine into your system, which I have no idea if there's a scientific study based upon that. But everyone I've talked to who does that sort of thing says it actually helps them. So yeah, cold showers definitely have helped me break out of a funk. And especially in this summer heat, it's a great way to get your body moving and get your apathy moving away.
It certainly gets my attention.
In a way, it inspires a sense of urgency, right? It's a way of changing your environment. So yeah.
Right.
Never thought of
Right.
that.
Let's shift gears for a moment. We had some questions from folks before the webinar started, and also I think some of the panelists have expressed this already. Just the issues surrounding cognitive impairment, and what can you do to sort of be ready for those moments when you experience executive dysfunction or executive control issues, or maybe just in general difficulty finding words, that sort of thing. How can you be prepared to deal with those circumstances, and how do you navigate them? One person actually put this in an interesting way. They asked, when you have some cognitive impairment in a specific moment, how do you deal with feeling like you've lost your control and your agency over your own moment? And I don't know if anybody has any ideas about that.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in. I mean, this has been part of my journey. As I said, my first diagnosis was the physical motor. But about 4 years later, in an executive capacity, I was a partner at a multinational professional services firm surrounded by partners. And I started losing words. And sitting around the boardroom table with my other partners, a question was asked by the managing partner for input. And as we went around the table, I forgot what the question was. And the first couple of times you make a joke of it, you say, sorry, I was distracted. But when it became more of a pattern, I grew concerned. And then also started losing words. My answers would trail off and I wouldn't complete the sentences. And sort of the real telling point was when I was trying to dial out of my office to host a conference call. My PA saw that I was dialing the digits incorrectly. I was putting a digit in front of the other, and she said, look, get home, you're not well, because I'd already disclosed everything to my team. And that gave me pause to go, back to my primary health provider, had a full cognitive assessment, and did find that I was starting to dip in terms of my executive functioning. And so, what did I do? So this was 5 years into my diagnosis. I at least had some tools to rely on, and I implemented those. In a situation when a question was asked, if I needed more time, I kind of rephrased the question or asked for the question to be repeated, because what I found is that if I gave my brain 1 second to sort of catch up and process, then I could find the words and I could find that answer. So I developed these coping skills with that. And also, for example, I spoke last. My mother told me, my late mother said that a sign of intelligence is when you speak last. And I learned that in the boardroom, because I could then listen, I could then formulate my response, and just gave me that time to manage my response. And it came out as, I would think, as coherently as I would have liked at the time. So that is what I've done to address that. I've become a whiz at Sudoku and the crossword, but I don't think that really helps. I think I've just become a whiz at Sudoku. But I do think there are some real-time mechanisms that we can implement to assist us in that journey.
For me, sorry, Kat, I'll let you
No,
go.
go ahead.
I have to interact with people on a daily basis, as everyone does, but as like a writer, reporter, it's been difficult to sometimes come across as on top of my game when I'm talking to people. I will be in the middle of a conversation and I'll forget words, or I'll just stare at them blankly. And then I get nervous and anxious and I'm like, I'm not performing well. I'm not doing all this stuff. So then you get this overwhelm of feelings, and then I start to stutter, and then I start to feel more anxious and overwhelmed. And so what I've learned is, as Kat often says, to be kinder to yourself, to give yourself some compassion, which is hard. But what I found that helps me is to slow down, take deep breaths, let the other person just know, excuse me, sorry, give me a moment, let me rephrase that. And then just to speak more slowly and think about what I'm speaking, because before I never had to think about what I'm speaking, or I didn't have to consciously think about what I was saying. The words and everything came so fluently. So now I have to make more of a conscious decision. So unfortunately, that's negative. So if I get mad at somebody, they know I'm deliberately mad at them, which doesn't work in my favor. But slowing down really has helped. And then you also realize how fast you were going in your life before. So this is I don't want to say it's a benefit, but it just makes you more aware of how your body reacts and how you can accommodate it. And there are things. And then also doing therapy like LSVT or speech therapy things actually help in many ways with word finding and stuff like that. So yeah.
It's really interesting to hear everybody's perceptions. And I know for me, my anxiety, what predated my Parkinson's diagnosis by like a decade. And I realized, you know, I left work one day basically lost in what was going on cognitively. I was a midwife. I had multiple patients on labor and delivery. I was supervising students. I was also the director of our service. And so I did a ton of multitasking. And what I thought was kind of losing my marbles in the anxiety was actually very much losing that executive function to be able to track that level of details. And it's only been now in retrospect, 10 years later, that I've really grown to understand that my brain was still working. It was just working differently. And I think that it's easy to almost catastrophize in the moment, like, oh my gosh, this is it, you know, I'm losing it. And it's really not. This Parkinson's disease is not a something I would wish on people, but it can be an opportunity for us to try to slow down a little bit and look at things a different way. And I love what you shared, Larry, just the perception of learning some new tools. And it's allowed me to understand myself at a deeper level and also realize that it may be this way for a long time. It may come and go. The apathy is different on different days. And I think remembering that when we're in the moment and feeling bummed out about it all, like the sun is going to set today and tomorrow it will rise. If we are lucky to survive the night, we have another opportunity tomorrow. And I don't mean to try to make it sound like Pollyanna, but it helps to break it down for me at a day at a time.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, Kat. Self-awareness, realizing that I'm going to lose my train of thought. And when it happens, try not to get anxious about it, try not to be embarrassed about it. Just recognize that it's going to happen.
When I have meetings with people, or if I have phone calls I have to make about bills or stuff like that, nowadays, because it's so present, I usually begin by saying I have some cognitive issues. I have Parkinson's. So if I repeat myself or if I get lost, just bear with me or bring me back. And I think that helps a lot. It just kind of hits it elephant off my back or the monkey off my back or whatever. And when it happens, I still get frustrated and whatnot, but at least I know they know what's going on. So I think by doing that, for years I hadn't done that, and then I just shut down so coldly because it would frustrate me so much. That's kind of taken the stress out of it, and that's the big thing we need to do, is take stress off of ourselves as these things happen. We need to somehow find a way to let people know this is kind of normal for us and it's frustrating, but we're okay. I think that helps get things a little more dealt with. And the one thing we always talk about here and there is mindfulness. And with my PTSD, I'm just now entering a study next week called mindfulness self-compassion. And that sounds really interesting to me, because I think that's the thing we're all talking about, is we're so used to being these high functioning people and we get hard on ourselves. And I don't know how to be self-compassionate. So an interesting thought. Anyway.
This
I think it
discussion
help-
has been really helpful. Go ahead, Doug.
I was just going to say, I think it helps me with full disclosure. I have no problem telling people that I have Parkinson's, and I may have cognitive difficulties. I may have problems speaking. I may be shaking. But for me, disclosing that I have Parkinson's takes some of the anxiety off of me when I am expressing symptoms.
This has been so helpful, because I'm having these executive function issues going on, and it's almost like when I get asked a question, I short circuit and I'm like a deer in the headlights, and I just can't think of anything. And so an adaptive strategy that I employed is I asked Chris to email me the question he was going to ask us to introduce ourselves with the day before, so that I have time to let it ruminate, because I can't think of anything quickly on the spot. And it's really interesting, because I can more so with work and things that aren't personal to me, but if it's something personal to me, I just completely short circuit. The other thing that happened to me the other day that I've never had happen before is I had a plan for the day with work. I had some very discrete tasks I needed to do that were very clear cut. And it was just, we're redoing our website and I'm redoing a bunch of content. So I'm writing a lot. And I also, by the way, I find writing easier than speaking. But a call came in. It wasn't an emergency, but it was something that required my attention and a thoughtful response. And it took, about 45 minutes. And it was like the metaphor, it's like as if I was on the highway and I took an off ramp and I couldn't get back on the highway. I just could not get back on the highway. And by about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I realized that I was doing nothing. I mean, I just was sort of sitting in front of my computer and I thought, well, this is not good. And I just couldn't get my marbles back together. And so I called it a day. And I just thought, I'll start tomorrow. And I can tell when I'm like really neurologically inflamed that, and in fact, I had started taking a new supplement, which I won't name, and I decided to stop taking it. And I found that I'm much better when I'm not taking it. But it is interesting to see how high functioning I used to be, and when I get these gaps in my performance. But someone else said, if I'm going to a meeting in person, I just tell everyone individually ahead of time that I have Parkinson's. Then I come in and nobody can tell because I'm calm and relaxed.
Yeah, Robin, you said a lot of interesting things in that in those moments, including that I actually think you took a gamble by asking me to do that, because I had to demonstrate executive function to remember to send you that message. But that's not the only thing that was interesting. I don't think we really touched on pain yet, and I think that's an important thing to talk about. And I also, while we go to pain, I also wanted to note that we had a question in the chat from one of the members of the audience asking us if we can share something positive. And I appreciate that. And I will share a thing that's positive about my own experience of pain quickly. I've been dealing with ankle pain for a long time, and it's gotten worse in recent weeks. And I talked about this last month, and I made a decision that has helped me a lot that relates to my navigation of pain. And basically I said, okay, I love to run. I love getting this cardio, but everything I was doing, riding a bike hurt my ankles, elliptical hurt my ankle, running hurt my ankle, walking hurt my ankle. So I said, what can I do? I said, okay, I need to get stronger, I think. So I've started doing some strength training, some light lifting, weight training, and that has really helped. And so I took a situation where I had pain and I sort of approached it in a different way so I could get my exercise in with a new approach. And that's been very helpful for me. So that's my thoughts about pain and a positive experience. And I don't know if anybody else has anything to offer, whether they're connected or not, about a positive experience relative to non-motor symptoms or something about pain.
For me, I think it's taught me to slow down and not pack my day with so much Parkinson's disease in general and pain. So before I'd pack my schedule with like meeting after meeting, thing after thing, a long list of things I have to do. And now I take a lot more breaks. I enjoy the day a lot more. I enjoy that cup of tea. I enjoy all the little things I can do. And I appreciate the world a lot more. I appreciate other people who have disabilities or who are disability aligned, however you want to place that. And I look at the world and I see how I could make it better by coming up with solutions, suggestions, participating, whether it's design or process and procedure. So it's really changed my life and my perception in that way. And to me, all of that is a positive. I am very grateful for that.
I
I've had,
completely
oh,
agree.
go ahead, Amber.
Sorry. I completely agree with Sri 100% on all the things she said. And then to add to that, the apathy, I think has a silver lining because I don't care. I also don't care about the small things. Like I don't sweat the small stuff anymore. Things that would have bothered me before, I'm like, who cares? Somebody's talking about me, somebody doesn't like something that I did. I really don't care. So it's a blessing in disguise in some ways.
Yeah, Kevin.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that I'm a nicer person now than I was before. I mean, in the working world, I was a bit of an asshole, and I feel like I've become a lot more. My EQ has gotten better than my IQ in this process. So it's just that I see the world with a great deal more sensitivity and love of others. I used to never care about that. It was all just drive for success.
Well, I
So-
was going to say that I have pain too, and I've had all kinds of pain, back pain, hamstring pain, sciatic pain, ankle pain. I have this pain where I feel like my bones get misaligned in my feet, just really weird stuff. And one of the ongoing pains I've had, I've used a dozen different female saddles for my bike that are designed for women. And I have just accepted the fact I found one that's the least bad, and I'm just not going to be able to ride pain-free anymore. It's just true. And so some of the things I've done for pain, I've been fortunate that some of the stuff I had in my hip, I got some dry needling, and I got this was after 6 months of physical therapy that was doing nothing whatsoever to improve the situation. I got some dry needling, and the muscles that were clenched released immediately, my quadriceps and my glute. And it was like, wow, it's crazy, but I had instant relief. And so I'm pretty diligent about bushwhacking my way, trying to find a solution. I don't take people's suggestions if they're not working. And I spent a ton of money on physical therapy, and it was doing nothing. And so I went for some dry needling.
I just wanted to say that, Kevin, I like you the way you are.
Oh, thanks.
I do too.
And talking about pain, I've been training for a bike ride across Canada, and I'm scheduled and planning to do 900 kilometers in 9 days. But this week, talking about pain, I've taken the week off because I've had so much pain. I don't know whether the pain has been caused from my Parkinson's, but most of it's been in my, my nether region, sitting on the saddle for so long. So I've taken a complete break, and I feel so much better with it that I think it's an important part of being fit is also, being mindful and being restful as well. But in terms of positive things, I mean, I've always said that I like the person that I became with Parkinson's, and I've done more and achieved more and found my purpose and my true value with Parkinson's than in any time before. So that's where, despite the challenges and the fact that we live with a chronic progressive illness and it's serious, I like who I've become, and I'm surrounded by people who think the same way. And I think there's tremendous value and support in that. So thank you.
That's a beautiful thing to say. One thing, and I agree with all of that, and I think that's the thing that helps me get going is when I keep thinking of you guys. But I had that bad car accident 2 years ago, and I had the back surgery in February, and I've just had all these problems and still using the wheelchair and the walker and stuff. And I've decided that I'm not getting there myself, and I need to have somebody help push me through the pain. And once a week with a physical therapist isn't cutting it with one body part when it's the knees and it's the back. And so I found this group called Adaptive Training Foundation out of Dallas. And I've applied for it, and they do 9 weeks with you, and they push you physically as well as mentally. And it's with physical therapists and stuff. And they have people who have Parkinson's who have done it. So I think I'm like the second or third. So I have an interview with them coming up. That's what I do, is I just try to seek other ways when nothing seems to be working. Is what can I find that'll get me out of this?
You're on
Like
mute.
Amber, I don't care about things anymore. Like, it doesn't bother me if someone's talking smack about me, whatever. I don't care. Doesn't bother. I don't care anymore. But Kevin, I'm more empathetic. So Larry, I really like who I've become because I'm just much nicer and I can handle things better. Because before, Kevin, sorry, I was kind of an asshole, so I would not have liked myself much. But now I don't give a shit. Sorry. And yeah, I don't care. And so it's much better. Now I'm more empathetic.
Yeah, this is an important lesson, right? I mean, Parkinson's teaches us so many things as we move through it. And one of the things that I think is pretty common to a lot of people is that you recognize what matters to you. And it can sort of help you draw an acute focus on that. And I think that's a real blessing. And it certainly helped me. Another thing that really helps me and is a blessing is this opportunity to hold this meetup and share some time with all the members of the panel and the audience. And we're at the end of our hour, and so I think we'll wrap it up for today. And our next meetup is July 18th. So we'll look forward to seeing you then. It's always the third Thursday of the month. And thanks for being here with us, everybody. We'll see you next time.